Awesome. So, bonjour tout le monde. Je vais commencer en français. Sorry, Brendan. I'll start in French and I'll be back with you in a few seconds. Donc, bienvenue à tout le monde. Bienvenue à cet autre Lunch and Learn avec Passion Whisky Québec. Cette fois-ci, on est avec Brendan Carty, le fondateur et master distiller aussi de la distillerie irlandaise Killowen. Je vous invite à faire comme d'habitude, si vous avez des questions, les mettre dans les commentaires. Vous pouvez aussi, bien sûr, commenter là, une fois que la vidéo va être terminée et je vais répondre à vos questions. On a à peu près 35 minutes aujourd'hui. On a commencé un petit peu en retard. On a à peu près 35 minutes. Donc, on va tout de suite commencer avec Brendan. So, hi, Brendan. First, thank you very much for joining us today. So, we're going to have like a roughly 35 minutes together today to learn more about yourself and your passion for whiskey and also poutine. So, that's a new thing for us. I mean, we had a discussion with another Irish distillery a few weeks ago, and we explained a bit what it is. But for sure, we're going through that again together to be sure people who are going to look at that video live or after will understand what it is. And for sure, we discussed about the distillery itself, the way you work. It's a very small distillery, and correct me if I'm wrong later, but I think it's the smallest distillery in Ireland. Am I right?
Actually, we're not entirely sure now because we have a very friendly distillery up north. So it's either between the two of us. I think his is slightly bigger. But yeah, we'll not get into it.
We'll talk about that later anyway. So yeah, so again, thank you for joining us. And I'll start maybe just by giving you the opportunity to present yourself a bit. I think you have a background a bit special, not directly from the let's say the master distiller school to the master distiller life, something different. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, well, I suppose our dose came a kind of Gaelic or shift a kind of Frankish. So our andrachar nilach berla agus nilian Frankish so came a kind of Gaelic berla. So I was just me speaking in my own language a little bit there too. So I feel European in that sometimes we have to speak the language of the larger audience, and in this case we're communicating through English, which is one that I'm also fluent in. But yeah, we're very proud Irish speakers here as well, and this is the language that we love, and it fits in perfectly as well with the concept of that sense of place and belonging. And these are our native spirits. Poaching being a native spirit, whiskey being a native spirit, and we have a sense of responsibility and dedication and love for our products as well that I'm sure you guys feel with your language as well at times. So, but so I'm the founder and distiller here at Killowen Distillery. So we're a tiny distillery based high up in the Mourne Mountains, overlooking the Irish Sea, distilling whiskey, gin, and poaching, and in very small batches. And luckily, we've got a group of hardcore supporters that are worldwide as well, and growing all the time. And it's great, and particularly in Ireland. The folks in Ireland here don't like to see our stuff going overseas because a lot of them complain that there's not enough of it here. But we got to spread the love. So
yeah, we're happy to have this chance to taste your products for sure. So. I read that you were first an architect before jumping in that distillery world. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true. Distillation, local distillation, poaching, distilling has been in my family for a long time. But as an architect, I think it takes 5.5 years in Canada, but in the UK, which we're actually in the north of Ireland, we're still part of the UK. It's 7.5 years minimum. Took me 8.5 because I partied a little bit too much one year, but which is fair enough. But it was a long time. It's a bit of a vocation becoming an architect, and it instilled values in me. But during the global financial crisis, we moved to Canada, and I was working some lovely work out there. And I just had the calling to make it a distillery. I was tasting some beautiful whiskies out there that were based from Tasmania, and I was tasting some lovely whiskies from back home. And I realised there was issues in the Irish whiskey industry. There was a lot of covering up, smoke and mirrors, a lack of transparency, and not an acknowledgement and a pride in our distilling history that there should have been. You know, 3 big myths: Irish whiskey is smooth.
Yeah,
that's an insult. Irish whiskey was bold and complex. The next one: Irish whiskey is non-smoked. Sometimes it's peated, sometimes it's not peated. A little bit like Killowen. Sometimes we're peated, sometimes we're not. And then the last one that really got to me was that Irish whiskey must be triple distilled. That was another myth. Irish whiskey was more double distilled than it was triple distilled. But we have survived ourselves in the last 2 decades, 3 decades maybe, with those 3 marketing myths. So
yeah,
they've become part of our culture as well. But what we're really trying to drive home is that full-bodied, bold, complex, distillate-led spirit, oily, viscous, full of flavour, no chill filtration, cast strength, independent, full of transparency. Those are the values that we really wanted to, you know, instill into our industry here. And it has taken off, and we've trailblazed on that. And as a result, we've actually influenced the industry, and a lot of the industry has started to do this as well, which is great.
Yes, absolutely. For whiskey lovers like our group, this is music to our ears for sure.
Good.
So yeah, really looking forward. And so you started distillery, I think 6 years ago, in 2017.
It was founded then, yeah, and it takes a little bit of time to get planning permission and then building it and getting the equipment together. So we've been distilling them for 4.5 years, and then we started to release our own liquid, you know. So it's been an enjoyable time, I have to say. And in that time, we've also been sourcing liquids from different distilleries, and liquids that are very difficult to get your hands on, like old Bushmills and Cooley, and batting those together. But we were very transparent, saying this came from this distillery. If it comes from GND, it says GND, and we've added them together, and we finish them creatively. We really make them our own in this distillery over the course of a couple of years, and then we release them as something, you know, quite different and quite unique.
Yeah, that is nice. And I know you change, or you improved the distillery in the last year, I think, or you changed. I saw some videos on YouTube where you're moving the stills by hand. I mean,
that's here, right here. This used to be our cask room, just right through there. So we knocked the wall down between, and we got another still in there. So we got one more still.
okay.
So the previous 2 stills are now being used as wash stills for the first distillation.
Okay.
And the third still now is used as our spirit still. So we still only fill the stills 30% of the way.
Okay.
We never fill them any more than that in order to have maximum reflux. And we still distill from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Still do 12-hour shifts instead of 6-hour shifts like every other distillery of our size.
Okay.
So
to be able to distill longer.
Yeah, that's what we always do, but which means that it's economic suicide for a distillery to do it.
Yeah.
So what we decided was we invested in a new still. We could make slightly more product with the same discipline and make it more financially viable. It's the accountant was pulling her hair out, going crazy at us. So we had
because
to do something.
This is definitely a small team. Is it just yourself, or you have few people working with you?
Yeah, we've got we've one other distiller working with us, Hugh. He was a childhood friend. He's brilliant. And then we've Shanda, who Carl and that has met. So Shanda, she's going on maternity leave next week. So next week we've got a new person coming in just to help us with paperwork and marketing and things like that. We don't have any marketing, but we do conversations online, and we talk to people and hang out, and we drink whiskey with friends. And that's the word of mouth about quality. That's our marketing. So
yeah, no, that's fine. If you have a small production, it's probably enough. If you have a good product, and it looks like it is, so then the word of mouth make it work for sure.
True.
Have you done some whiskey shows or some event like this, or?
Yeah, we do one in Dublin every year. We go to Whiskey Live every year in Dublin. It's the big one. And then Belfast Whiskey Week is a big one as well. It has a lot of integrity. So at Belfast Whiskey Week this year, I actually won the Ireland's best distiller, which was a remarkable achievement considering the competition I had with Middleton and all those guys, and every distillery in Ireland was involved. So it's probably the best thing I've ever achieved in my life. Still can't get over it. So I don't like to talk about awards, but it's important for the distillery that it's mentioned. So yeah, that's for our poachings and our whiskies.
Awesome. Yeah, and we saw in the back your equipment there for distillation. So I can put that a little bit more in front. And there you are. So if you can explain a little bit your process in there, and these are very small stills. So
that they are.
Yeah.
So the one to the left is 1,000 liters, and we only ever put 300, 400 liters into it. The one to the right, it's an 800 liter still, and again, it's only about 30% full. So they have now become both wash stills. The new still is exactly the same as the one to the right, identical.
Okay.
Made by spec. So the lovely thing about these stills is that there's fire underneath them. So we brought back flame. Yeah. It was a new thing, and as an architect, it took me 2 years fighting with the building control to get this allowed.
Yeah.
And the Irish Whisky Association were ringing me up saying you can't do that either. I was like, why? And they said because it hasn't been done in 40 years. And I thought, so
yeah,
we just argued, and I said, look, he's actually a politician, this guy. So I told him to stick with politics, and I would stick with architecture. we haven't spoken since, and we've been under fire from the Irish Whisky Association ever since. So we're seen as rebels sitting on the outside of the industry, but we're very proud of that, and it's the best place to be. It's is it easy to just control the fire to get your temperature you want? It can be. The difficulty is that there's hot spots with the fire under the still. So the fire where it hits the still, it creates burning around the rings around the inside of the still. And that burning, you don't get that with a coil or with a steam coil or a hot plate, but in these hot spots you get burnt spots. And that's when the proteins from the grain and the yeast and then the sugars and the starches burn together. It creates this beautiful dimension of flavor that's just, it's the same as peated or non-peated. It's that clear. This extra dimension of flavor comes through in the spirit. And it's known as the Maillard reaction, named after the French culinary scientist from the late 1800s. And that Maillard reaction is whenever proteins and sugars burn together. And it's the difference between eating a raw creme brulee and a cooked creme brulee. The difference is there, or would you boil a steak or would you barbecue a steak? So it's cooking food with burning is so important, and it makes such a change to flavor. And it's the same with the spirit,
Oh, nice, interesting to see that. So I have a question in the chat. So the fuel you're using, is it gas or it's just wood?
Gas. Yeah. So there's gas, but there's 2 gas rings. And they burn. Okay. So every day when we come in, we have to get the power hose inside the still and get a wee small brush and scrape off. And you get these flakes of caked on flakes of burnt produce, because all of the yeast, we do grains in as well. So all of the grain comes into the still and it just sinks to the bottom. We cook it, we heat it up very slowly. So you're 7 a.m. and it starts to get warm after 3 hours. And all of that substance is sinking to the bottom and caking and burning. But we filtered it a couple of times and we preheated it, and the distillate tasted nowhere near as good. There's nothing to replace the slow method that we use.
Interesting, very interesting. So you do that for the whiskey and the poutine as well.
And you see those things in the middle there, the condensers, they're huge.
Yes, for sure.
Those are huge. So normally you use shell and tube condensers. Those are worm tubs. Big old worm tubs. Like worm tubs have been used from the advent of distilling, of modern distilling back in the Renaissance, in early Renaissance in Italy, And this is where it all started. And Before that, they were using plates and things like that wasn't real distilling as we see it today. But these worm tubs are just they create first of all a slower process, so it's less of a draw on the still. So if you've got a fast condensation, it acts as a draw and pulls the vapor out of the still faster. It creates a bit of a vacuum and pulls it out faster. These things, because they're so open, there's always air working their way through, so you're losing efficiency to the atmosphere around you, and at the same time, the way it distills isn't faster. So it gets time for the compounds to come together. So you get all of these like beefy, meaty notes coming through in your whiskey, which is what we want, because you get your sweet notes and your beefy notes, and it creates complexity and balance, rather than just clean, clear, fruity spirit, which, to be honest, is very boring. We've had that for a few decades now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And where did you get all the ideas to put all that together that way? And I mean, the old-fashioned way, and try to bring that, because as you mentioned at the beginning, it's not financially effective.
Yeah,
so it's definitely not the objective. But where did you get the idea to put that in place?
I suppose we were part of a whiskey club, Belfast Whiskey Club, and a whiskey club in Sydney when I was in Australia, and you're tasting spirits that are delicious, and then you're tasting these old spirits from Ireland back before Scotch. We were lucky to be part of syndicates that bought bottles and shared them amongst historians, to have these conversations, and extreme whiskey enthusiasts, wonderful people. It was just before the Irish whiskey renaissance, and so we were having these conversations, and we were trying to figure out what Irish whiskey was before its collapse, before the growth of Scotch single malt, which, let's be honest, is quite a modern invention, a very good one that's now been around for a very long time. It is the bread and butter of world whiskey. But before Scotch growth, it was Irish pot still whiskey that was the whiskey of choice. Throughout Canada, America, the British Empire, the British Merchant Navy, all the way from here around India, it was Irish pot still. And after, we refused to embrace a column still in Ireland, and that was the main reason. That is without doubt the main reason why Irish whiskey died out. And then there was all the other reasons afterwards, prohibition and whatnot. But it was because we were so dog-headedly deciding to do this inefficient method that we're using today. So again, economic suicide. But we're here to create the best whiskey in the world.
But I mean, today it's probably a bit different with there's a lot of whiskey enthusiasts all around the world, and it's easier to sell everywhere in the world than it was 100 years ago, for example.
Yeah, good point.
Reaching whiskey clubs and things like that were probably not existent 100 years ago also. So there's definitely passionate people about whiskey these days, and I'm sure your products are something very interesting for these groups. So folks really do enjoy what we do, in different countries, in Italy and places like that, and Canada is as well. In Alberta, so we can't wait to get into Quebec. We understand there's good whiskey drinkers there, so we just can't wait. Yeah. And so, we talking about that, we definitely have different products we're going to have in our private import group. We have the 14. So you have 3 versions. We have one. We're going to have the whiskey, the 5 years old, and 2 gins as well. So can you talk about these products a little bit? So how you've done them, and the why, the reason behind them, and the taste maybe a little bit too.
Yeah, so the Roman Raisin, this is a slightly different bottle. This hasn't been released yet. It's 700ml bottle we're toying around with releasing. I think we're going to have the 500. So that's the last version. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, the 500 is still wonderful. It's just we're toying around today with the 700 and looking at it. But the 500 it's the way we do our Roman Raisin. It's gorgeous. So what we do with it is we take the liquid, the whiskey, and we finish it in 2 sorts of casks. PX sherry casks, which are coming directly from the Jerez, and they're lovely, fresh, rich. All those raisin notes in the cask, dried fruit raisin notes. And then we finish it in our own rum casks, because we make small amounts of rum ourselves also. So we finish it in these two types of casks. One cask is full, one rum cask full, one PX sherry cask full. We vat them back together again, and you get these lovely rum and raisin notes. So hence the name rum and raisin. And
so
then
do you age that even more? So you have the whiskey, you age that for. Is it just a finish? Because I think
it's a finish.
Because
it's a finish.
you buy this distillate from another distillery at that time right now.
From Great Northern Distillery, yeah. And then we finish it in the PX sherry cask and the rum casks.
Can you say how long in both casks?
At least 6 months, sometimes a year. Which means that every time we do it, they're slightly different. Every batch is slightly different. Sometimes you're getting more rum, sometimes you're getting more sherry, sometimes it's more viscous, or else sometimes you're getting much more of the distillate coming through. The lovely thing is, every single one of them is wonderful, but they're always slightly different, which is good because consistency is for mass market produce that doesn't have character, I think, and as long as it's consistently good, not the only rule here is nothing leaves here unless it's brilliant. And so we were lucky enough, we got a double gold in the 50 Best Awards up in Seattle then last year on it, which was really cool. So that was nice, a nice one to get.
Absolutely. So then you made these two casks together, and do you have still a little bit more aging in another cask after that, or it's just like sitting in the vatting?
Yeah, then we just vat them both together and let it sit for a couple of days.
For a couple of days, then
just a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, whatever, and that's it. They're good to go. And then we start to bottle it.
If you have just one cask of each, it's just a small batch. Then you probably have 500-600 products of each batch.
Yeah, so that's it. So the casks, yeah, that's it. So it varies. Sometimes there could be about 10 bottles more, or 10 bottles less, or whatever. Sure. So now the rum casks are big. We use a bigger rum cask and a bigger PX sherry cask. So you get in around 900 bottles odd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, awesome. And then talked about a bit more about the poutine, because for sure, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not something really that we really know here in Quebec and in Canada. So explain a little bit what it is, a bit more in detail, and then your product, in fact, what's particular to it.
Yeah, so Irish poutine is seen as whiskey's mummy. It can be a young spirit, and it should be made from grains. There's a bit of conversation we had today in a meeting trying to define what it is, and some people see that you should be allowed to add fruit as an adjunct, a little bit of fruit, and in order to stop the industry fighting, I'm agreeing with them, and there is historical evidence for doing that, which is fine. Small adjuncts of fruit to go in, but all in all, it's mostly grain whiskey, so it mostly has malted barley, unmalted barley, oats, rye, and wheat in there. Basically, it's like a young pot still. You're allowed to finish it in a cask for no more than 10 weeks, because the idea is, historically, you would never have kept it for more than about 2-3 months anyway. So you can put it in any cask at all. So we like to play with ours, and we finish it in 3 different casks. Either we do one that's in a bourbon cask, one that's in a stout cask, and we do one in a PX cask. So we release some poutines. We've released quite a few poutines in the past that have sold out immediately, a lot of them within seconds after people tasting them and realizing how good they are. And every year in Ireland, now in the last 2 years, there's been an event called Poutine Now, which is in November. So if anybody wants to come to Ireland in November, to Dublin, to the best bar in Ireland, definitely 1661, check out Poutine Now. It's class. Yeah, it's a great festival, and you'll meet all the most extreme whiskey and spirit enthusiasts at Poutine Now. That's where they all tend to congregate. So whiskey enthusiasts are one level, but when you go to the Poutine thing, it's the absolute maniacs like ourselves that all tend to descend there and really enjoy the category, because it's so closely related to whiskey. But whenever you're making a poutine, you can't hide. You can make a whiskey fast, and you make spirit fast, and leave it in a cask for, say, a few years, and you can hide some of your mistakes. But when you're making a poutine, you have to make it well. So the word poutine means small pot. So it has to be in a pot still. It can't be using column stills. It has to be pot still spirit, and it uses mixed mash bills. So the one that you guys have as well is Panger.
Yeah.
Panger, the name is wonderful. The name comes from, as I told you, I'm an enthusiast for our language as well. So Panger was a poem written in the 9th century. I know everybody sees Ireland as this once colonized country that's still on its knees sometimes, but we're a very vibrant history. So whenever Europe was in the Dark Ages, it was Irish who set up a university system and brought back the written word, told people how to read and write again, set up a university system, started in Gaul, worked our way up through Switzerland and Northern Europe. And then this university system became a very powerful monastic thing in a country that's now known as Germany. Ireland obviously existed as an entity before that. We had a monks in the 9th century, so this continued on long into it, writing scripture. And at that same time, he started writing poetry, which was pretty sacrilegious at the time. He was a naughty boy. Yeah. He should have been doing his work. And he had a little book of poetry, all satire. Satire is a massive part of Irish history. It always has been. It was because poetry was propaganda. It was the most powerful tool at the time.
Yeah,
and the oral tradition. And so he was writing his poetry anyway, and his little cat was in the corner, torturing a mouse with such skill and precision, torturing this poor mouse, letting it go and getting it again. And it was driving him mad. He thought, how could I be doing God's work so well? And there's this animal, absolutely torturing this mouse. And then he just realized after a while, shit, I'm actually doing something a bit naughty here too. He's doing God's work. I'm doing God's work. We're both doing it. I'm cool with his, he's cool with me. And that's how the poem goes. But whenever you read it in English, it loses a lot of its magic, of course. But it's still worth checking out in English. And that revival, our language is going through a revival period at the moment as well, which is really lovely. Poaching was made legal in 1661 through our lovely neighbour England. And it was illegal right up until 1997. So people in our family and other families who used to make poaching have been doing it illegally, keeping it alive, these old family recipes and things for hundreds of years. And in 1997, it was made legal, and we're still trying to find our feet with it again. But our analogy is always, the relationship between mezcal and tequila is very similar to the relationship between poaching and whiskey.
Oh, okay.
That's what we try to instill in people, and people who know their spirits can enjoy it.
Awesome. And it's funny that you choose because in our mind, because it's a white product. I mean, transparent product. It's like a moonshine in US, or sometimes we call that white dog as well. So that's the white
in a way.
White dog. Have you thought about that, or it's just?
In a way, I tasted a few white dogs, and they don't have the same love and care and people don't have the same responsibility for the spirit that we do here. You shouldn't be making bad poaching. It's not a new make spirit. It can be finished. It can be finished for 10 weeks, like these are as well.
Yeah.
But it's all about the mash bill. So you have to get, enough body. You have to get enough creaminess. You have to get enough spice in the mash bill. It's all about celebration of the mash bill. And we don't use yellow corn, Indian corn over here, whatever the names of it are. Corn for us is oats. So we use oats, malted barley, unmalted barley. And that's the main. You can add a little bit of rye, native rye, or a little bit of wheat in there, but it's all about the oats and the barley.
Okay.
It's a much more forgiving drink if you do that. So these are just two of them. But the one that you guys are getting is on the bar menu. We're the only people who get on the Dead Rabbit menu twice, and we never paid to get on it like all the other brands that have been there before. So the lovely thing, and that's supposed to be the best bar in the world, but that poaching actually won double gold in the San Francisco Spirit Awards as well this year. So that's for a new category product like that. That's remarkable.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome for you. And I've heard that you malted your barley yourself. Am I right?
The oats, yeah. So we collect turf from the mountains here locally. Turf is what we call peat in our local region, and then we malt our own barley in a little shed just out the back. If you want to check it out online, you can. But it's very small amount, of course, and we malt local oats which are grown just down the laneway. We malt them we grow it, and then we dry them out with local turf. And turf is incredibly regional. Turf tastes different everywhere you go because of the local flora and fauna, location, distance from the sea, highland, lowland. Maybe it's more coaly, sometimes it's more florally. But ours is kind of the middle of the road flavor.
Yeah, really looking forward to taste that. And is that peated taste in your whiskey as well, or it was just used for the poitín at that stage?
Some of our whiskies are peated, yeah. Some of them are peated, and they tend to disappear very quick. And then this one isn't peated, of course, the sourced one, but this one is peated. So this is lightly peated. The flavors in this are like a high-end mezcal. That's what you're going to get out of this. That's what all the flavor. It's unbelievably mezcal-y. It's weird. And those real cooked burnt notes you get out of a high-quality mezcal. That's what our peat's coming across like. Instead of a real, it's not like an Isla peat. It's more of a real baked note in there, like an agave sort of burnt note. It's weird, but that's what it is, and that's the regional approach that we have.
Awesome! Really looking forward to taste that for sure. And then you have the two gin we're going to have. There's the original gin. This one we're not going to have that time. So you have two, let's say, flavored gin. Maybe you can just quickly present that. And you do these gins also with your cask, your
yeah. So what we do is we get a flavor basket, which is a thumper. We use it to make our rum as well, and we suspend our botanicals inside the thumper keg, and we redistill the ethanol through it and through the basket, and collect the spirit on the other side. So the cuts are crazy. We take a small heads cut. And then we do our hearts, and we just cut off the still when it comes to 40. So once you're at vodka strength, all the rest of that alcohol, unfortunately, can't get reused because it just has to be paid for to get taken away and destroyed, because it tastes like like musty vegetables. I don't know other people who have very fancy column still equipment can redistill that right down, but we just had to get rid of it. So it's an expensive process, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the flavor. So it's called native botanical gin because we harvest the botanicals locally in the Mourne Mountains, wild angelica root, all of those beautiful flavors: rosehip, meadowsweet, elderberry, elderflower, lovely things. Because in the Mourne Mountains, it's an area of outstanding natural beauty, is what it's called, and it just has the most beautiful abundance of wild flowers and wild, botanicals growing abundantly. And we just have to walk outside and start picking in the mountains around us because of our highland location. But what we do as well is, you see this reddy color. Once we get it, then we get a big massive tea bag afterwards. So you've got the clear one that we distill, and then we basically compound as well afterwards. So we compound our own gin with extra flavors. Blackberries, which go extremely black very quickly. Blackberries are great. Blackberry, rosemary, and orange. So the rosemary isn't a native botanical, so we're very careful that we've it growing along the flower beds in the distillery here outside. It grows in abundance, but if we plant that in the wilderness, it would damage the ecosystem. So we have it properly planted, and we pick it ourselves. Oranges we buy in because oranges don't grow well in Ireland, so you can forgive us for that. So we buy them in the orange rind, and we dry it out, and then it goes into the thing as well,
Okay, so you dry them yourself then.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So fresh orange, and then you dry them.
Yep. So blackberry, rosemary, and orange, and that goes into these. The thing is, if you put orange rind in that hasn't been dried, the oils are just very overpowering, and then whenever you put ice into it, it goes extremely cloudy. That's okay for me, but other people might get turned off by the cloudiness of it. Or if it's a very cold day, which you definitely get a lot of over where you guys are, you get cloudy gin,
Yeah.
So we have to be careful with that. So dried orange is important.
Awesome. So, do you have plan to? There's for sure your spirit that you're going to bottle at some time. Is it something you want to do soon, or you're just waiting for things to be ready in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? I don't know. Or do you expect to do some bottling from your spirit?
We do that. Yeah, it can gladly go out to you guys as well in time. the reality is it disappears immediately. It tastes very, very good. Like sometimes it disappears in seconds. The websites crash. There's all sorts of issues. It's great, but yeah, I'll get some of it now. The Bar and Tool is the own whiskey. It will come out to you guys too. If you can get a bottle of it online anywhere, do buy it. It's they go for crazy money on auction sites and things like that, but there's a lovely culture amongst our buyers and our followers that when they buy something, when they tend to open it and drink it and share it. So that's the idea. You know, it's Bar and Tool is in our language. It means authentic and unique. So, yeah, it's those are big favorites. There's a lovely organization called the Killowen Cult. So it's a cult following, and they set themselves up independently of us. They run their own group. It's Cult with a K. A lot of them have membership cards, and they're very supportive of things we do, and they've got their own merchandise and stuff as well. And so we're very lucky to have the best fans in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, for us to buy things online, it's not possible legally to do this in Quebec province. So we will have to go through the agency to call, and then to you, and try to get some maybe boxes that you keep for us on the side, and then we offer that to the group. But definitely we're
already working on that on a little small cask for you guys to keep it specially for Quebec and your group. Your group, absolutely. A small amount, that a little a sherry firkin, you know. So that'll be coming.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward for that. And at the same time, if you travel to Canada and you stop by in Montreal and Quebec City, we can organize a tasting also with the people available at that time for sure, and taste your products.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to. I definitely will.
In the meantime, just want to thank you for your time, for your explanations today. Really interesting to learn a bit more about you, about the distillery. We could talk for hours like this. There are so many questions in my head, so many things we can discuss, but it was just an overview at this stage. We're going to send you the order in the next few weeks, and then we'll start from there, and we'll talk together later probably to talk about other products.
Definitely, and just extend to your audience or your colleagues that if anybody wants to ask any questions, don't be afraid to reach out on Facebook or Instagram, and just write them, you know, directly to the distillery, and I'll answer. So we're a very small team here, so it's me managing the social media. If I'm a little bit slow to get back, apologies. It's just sometimes difficult to get through everything, but I'll respond to any questions and queries. Twitter as well is great, but sometimes I miss the mailbox on Twitter. But reach out to everything now. Actually, you have to pay for it now because Elon Musk is such an idiot. So, so yeah, you have to pay to write messages to people. But yeah, go ahead, reach out, and
awesome.
I'll reply.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you very much again for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk again later in a few months probably to talk about other products. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Bye bye. Slancha.
Alors, merci tout le monde. Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez me rejoindre aussi, ou comme Brendan a dit, vous pouvez le rejoindre directement sur les médias sociaux. Alors, merci tout le monde. À la prochaine.